Hey, I'm Matthew Ventures, and this is an update on what I've been working on. This is a multi-purpose video. I'll be updating the team I'm working with, Regis and Jameson from the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario, from the International Pharmaceutical Federation, who are handling all the research side, and basically I code it and they tell me if it's good. These are incredibly talented individuals who I've been able to work with. They're our partner on this project. And we are making something which is primarily a better way to relay medication instructions. So when you look at a medication label, right, it can be a little bit hard to understand. That text is pretty small, and the idea here is, what if we created pictograms? So this is actually a pictogram for ibuprofen printed in our format of a label, and I know I'm doing a bad job of showing that, but hopefully you can get an idea. But that's the basic gist of this project. And so Regis and Jameson, the last time we spoke, I showed them that we had support for the prescriber, but what I've added recently is support from the patient perspective. So now they can log in and the prescriber can actually send them the medication instructions. So that is one use of this video, and I'll be addressing the software and where we stand and where we're going. But it's also for my teacher, Chris Peach, who has thankfully helped to proctor an independent study, which has allowed me to work on this a little bit during school time, and it's a project I plan to continue as a service work for quite some time. But I'm appreciative of that, and I want to give him an update. It's also an update for Luke and Chase, Luke Sturm and Chase Lordy, who were two other students who worked with me on this project in various capacities. And so this is an update to show them kind of where it's going. And it's also an update for my friends and any fans who've asked me, what am I working on right now? When's the new game coming out? My buddy Scott Mulligan's always asking me that, right? And this is an update to show kind of the current project I've been working on. It's not a video game, but it's really important software that I think can help a lot of people. And it's actually been a long time coming. So this is actually an interview I did well, not 2019. I don't know when this was. This was Intel ISEF about 5 years ago, when I was presenting a very early version of this project to Not Impossible Labs. And basically, I had connected with Regis through my high school research teacher, and he convinced me that this was going to be a crazy project. So I got my dad to drive me to Canada. And then later, when I made the software, we flew out to Ireland, and that's where this picture was taken. This is me, and that's my dad, and that's Regis over there, actually. And this is me actually presenting an early version of the software. Here's what it looked like then. Not very beautiful. It's come a long way, I promise. And we're going to do more work on it, too. But that is me presenting it in Ireland. And that's my dad. This is a picture we took on the way there in France. So I wanted to, and actually you could download the old version now at fipfoundation.org/pictograms download. And this is actually the old version of the software. So if I wanted, I could actually save it and look at it. And you could look at this video, which kind of shows a demo of that. And so basically, this was a project I made in high school. And, it had some good things and some bad things. But basically, it was created in Java, and right now, for some reason, it just runs so slow. I've learned a lot since then, though, and so we're going to make it a lot better. And I'm excited to share with you the tech stack, which I'm going to be opening today. But I just thought it'd be useful to kind of see the full perspective of where it's come and, what we've been working on. But alas, it's taken too long to download. Let's just jump into it. I wanted to show you what we're doing now. So the premise, as I showed you before, is taking medication instructions and making them easier to understand. So I think I have a build here. And Regis and Jameson, I'll be emailing you guys the latest build. But we're feature complete for desktop right now. There is some scaling issues I want to address. So we're designing this in no small degree for mobile. So this is kind of the target aspect ratio. I'm trying to accommodate this as well if you want a desktop, and And this transition is pretty fluid, like, you know, it scales nicely. Not all the screens scale nicely right now, so that's something I'm still working on. But usually if you drag it back to this aspect ratio, you'll be able to see everything if there's an issue. And so you can create an account, and so this is kind of the big idea, is that in the old version of the software you could only do a prescriber, but now you could do a patient as well. So let's create a prescriber, and this is my email, and my username is going to be Matthew, and my password is 123. So if I log in here, then I currently have no patients, so we're going to add those. So you go in here, you can add your patient. So this patient is going to be Greg, and he's going to have an email too. And Greg has English and Africa. So English is what language does he speak? Okay, so that text is wrong. Africa is the patient region. And I can add the patient then, and then access Greg and add prescriptions for Greg. So, you know, here's the med name and the ref num. You could add some comments and stuff here. This is actually new, this button here. If you push this, it'll hijack the webcam of your computer. Sorry, the aspect ratio is a little off there. Doesn't look so good. That's something I'll work on. Or on the phone, it'll actually take the phone camera and it will take a photo. It's not doing that now because I'm using my video for the video recording. But you would push take photo and then save the photo, and then that would come up here. And so now we can actually add pictograms. And so there are several different kinds of pictograms: indication, dose route. Indication is what you take it for, so you might take it for back pain, so you check that. Dose route, you might take 1 tablet every morning and night. Precautions, and so this is stuff that the CHIO team's already seen, so let's save that. But kind of the big idea here is now we can export, and we can actually so now we can actually directly create a label and send this as an email or something. But we can also create a link, and so this is kind of the exciting new aspect of the tech stack, which has opened up my email client. And this is an email that I would send to, you know, my patient's email, which is already pre-populated in this field here. And it would say something like, you know, download the app at glyphapp.com. This is a fake URL, but, you know, we'll fill that in. And then you can actually enter this code in the program if you're in a patient account, or you can just use this URL link. So here, I'll just do it manually, but let's say I'm here now, and let's log out. So now I'm gonna create an account for a patient. So this is Greg essentially. So if Greg came in here and he's like, hey, you know, he's in my office, he's like, well, what's my medication instructions? Then I could paste in that code from the email. So you cut that, or Greg could just push the link, and then he imports that, and now he's got it in his account. He can't edit it. Patients aren't allowed to edit the prescription instructions, but he can approve it and see what we've set up for him, and then he can actually export that as a label and storyboard and a medication calendar, which shows kind of over each day what medications to take. And it's a little sparse if you didn't take the picture of the medication, but that's okay because my camera's broken. Well, I mean, it's being used. So then there's also a feature for reminders, so I can actually set reminders for this medication, and this is pretty exciting. So I can say at 12 p.m. every day until March 10th, give me a reminder on my phone. And so for the mobile, this will look like a push notification. But I haven't yet explored what we want to do for desktop. So I guess if they're using it on their computer, we could look into maybe sending them an email, or maybe we could send them a text message. There's a number of ways we could go there. I'd be excited to hear what you think on that, Regis Jameson. But for mobile, it'll be a push notification, and that's something that I'll be working on. But it's currently set up, and it'll associate a date time with whatever you need. And yeah, so that's it. So that's kind of what it looks like now. I'd love to show you a little bit of the back end. So when I'm looking at all those pictograms, they're actually regionally specific. So here, let's log back into Matthew for a second. So when I'm adding pictograms here, it's automatically going to put in the front any pictograms for Greg's location, which I believe is Africa. And that's because, you know, sometimes there's various regions. So for example, night, for some reason in Africa, they've got a different photo. It's this guy on a bed versus the sleepy night sky. And so the idea here is that we can upload those pictograms at any time through this. We have an AWS server. And so this is something I set up where basically we have asset bundles that could be downloaded. And if we want to change a pictogram for one reason or another, or add a new one, we can just do that using the AWS console, and it'll update immediately. This is my logbook where I keep track of stuff. And then this is pretty exciting. This is actually the live FIP translations. So every time the software is accessed, and that's a little too frequent, it should probably be every day or so, it will download this document, which is essentially a CSV for translations, where the left-hand column is the English term, and then the right-hand column is a number of different languages translating that term. Now, Google Sheets actually has a really cool feature where they pre-populate these fields with translations for the applicable language. So for example, if you put in email in Google Translate, it'll come out in French as email. Not very interesting there, but basically the idea is we can auto-translate all of these terms until they are manually hand-checked. And so actually, because of the previous version of the software, some of these were already hand-checked, and so that's what all the white spaces are. The white terms are the ones that were manually hand-checked. All the red ones are computer-generated, which need to be validated by a translator. And so that's kind of what that looks like on the back end. And that's really cool because that means that we don't need to work through Apple's crazy application review process if we need to change a typo. We can just go in here, change it, and boom, it's live, which is really exciting. And then the other thing I wanted to show you was how in the world, this is the new tech. This is the new thing I'm showing to Regis and Jameson, which is this idea of creating a URL link that the patient can then click in order to open up the data in their app. And so the way that that works is this is actually TinyURL. This is basically, you know, it's like bit.ly. It's just a service for redirecting links. And so I'm accessing their API in order to shorten this link. But the reason why I do it is actually so it's recognized as a link. For some reason on mobile, if you don't have like a .com, it's not recognized as a link. But this is redirecting to the following: FIP://import prescription, prescription ID 59C4D. And so this is essentially a deep link, which makes use of a third-party software that I'm using as an integration into Unity called Imagination Overflow. And so they have a universal deep linking plugin, which is actually what allows us to open up the link. So you actually haven't seen that, because I manually copied the code. But if I were to go to this TinyURL, so let's do that now. So let's close that. If I go to this TinyURL, oh, typed it wrong. Let's try that again. Then it will ask me if I want to open up the TPA application. And so we can open it up at that point. And that will, basically what it's doing is it's starting the application with this little bit of data, right? 59C4D, so it knows what prescription it needs. It's not going to auto-log you in for security concerns. So you would need to, what was the guy's name? Greg? I think that was it. Okay, so it logged me in, and then boom, it immediately downloaded the prescription. So that's kind of what that looks like. That's the deep link in action, essentially. It opens the application, but with this data sent. And so obviously 59C4D is not the data. It's just a key for what's essentially an online dictionary, which I did not go with a traditional database for hosting. In fact, it's actually hosted on Google Sheets. And so I have a video on my YouTube channel that explains how this backend works. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of awesome. But basically through APIs, it autofills out this public G form with a key and a value, and then that's submitted into this publicly accessible key value sheet. So basically you could see here 59C4D was the key that was just entered, and then the value, here's where the data is actually being stored, right? Obviously this is all encrypted, so it's safe to store publicly. However, because the keys are publicly accessible as well, at this point there's a security concern, which is that you could, in theory, type in someone else's key and you'd get their data, right? So that needs to be fixed. It's an easy fix. It's just not something I've done yet. And what that would be is the encryption needs to be encrypted with a key, which is in part not posted here. So there's two keys here, so there's an unfortunate overlap in terminology, but there's a key value for the dictionary, so I'll call that the dictionary key. That's the access key. And then there's also a key which is used for the actual encryption, which is we'll just call that the encryption key. So basically right now everybody can see the dictionary key, the access key, and that's all you need to get the data. But instead, this access key is not what's going to be delivered by the email. It's going to be the access key, you know, this, what was it, the code, sorry, I'm getting into the weeds. People aren't interested anymore. They've clicked away. But basically, it's the access key, you know, plus the decryption key. So the user will eventually get both of these things, and I'll squeeze this down into like 5 characters. But the idea is, while this is what's going to be delivered to the user, only the access key will be published online. So you'll be able to access it, but then to actually decrypt it, you'll need the decryption key, which is not going to be published to the form. It's going to be delivered by hand. So at the end of the day, they're just going to type in 5 characters, and they're not going to know the difference, but I will, and I'll know that their data is secure, which is very important because it's obviously a very, very important data, medication instruction data. So that is an update. There's a few other things which I'd love to talk about. So with Luke Sturm, I created a system that uses Google's Tesseract optical character recognition software to, if you take a picture of this pill bottle, it'll pull out and extract using some, basically some smart search control find algorithms in order to figure out what the medication instructions are for this particular medication labeling. And that's pretty exciting because then the prescriber won't have to manually click all the pictograms. Instead, they just take a picture of the medication label and it immediately pre-populates that. So I don't have a demo for that right now, but it is working. It's just I haven't integrated the I haven't integrated the libraries into the Unity assembly yet. So that's something that is on my to-do list, but right now it's kind of like a push feature. We really want to get the testing out for the patient and prescriber use cases. So with that being said, that's kind of the demo, and I'm excited to share it with Jameson and Regis, hear what they think. And from this point, we're going to be integrating their feedback so that we can get the desktop version to A+, Big Smile standard, and then we're going to pursue a mobile release, which will include Android and iOS distribution for testing until we can get everything squared away, and then it will be available for clinical practice or you know, missionary work or whatever it is people want to use it. It'll be available for free. And yeah, I'm really excited to give you the update. I hope you enjoyed the walkthrough. Hopefully it wasn't too boring, and I'm really excited to share with you where this project goes from now. Thanks.